As you already know, I'm building a fully exposed carbon fibre Porsche. Now to date, all I've done is focus on the exterior, and the interior is pretty standard, apart from 2 bucket seats. However, today, that's going to change. And that's because I get to fit all this. Now as you can see here, this table's full of carbon fibre, and now I'll be able to make the interior of this car match the exterior. Now fortunately for you guys, I'm not just going to be fitting these to the car, I'm also going to give you a bit of a tutorial. I'm going to turn this completely standard leather skimmed Porsche dash part, and I'm going to laminate it in carbon so I can show you how I made all these parts, so you guys at home can copy me if you wish. But I'm pretty excited to see all these parts in the car, so stay tuned. So as you know, I'm building a full carbon fibre Porsche, and to date all I've done is the outside. So as you can see here, the exterior is progressing rather well, however the interior is a different matter. Apart from the seats, this car inside is pretty standard. The seats are rather nice, but the rest of the interior is falling behind. So we've got the original steering wheel, everything else in the car is original. So you've probably been thinking, wow, he's been busy, look at all them carbon parts he made. You may remember from a previous video, I have 2 of these 911s, and my other car, well, the interior isn't standard, so let me show you. All this stuff here has come out of my old car, with all the carbon stacked up, ready to go on in the next future videos. But here is my old car. Now you may notice the exhaust is still off. That's because this is the exhaust of my new car and I haven't yet fitted it back on here. But with regards to the interior in this thing, as you can see, it's not standard. So I just found something cool inside the car, this door bar. So I made this for car shows to stop people getting in my car when I was walking away. And I left it unprotected, so it clips onto the latch and clips into the door there, and it basically stops people opening the door and getting into the car, stop people sitting in your car at car shows. So it's full carbon, lightweight, and it has my YouTube channel marked on, even though when I made it I didn't have a YouTube channel, but yeah, preempted it. Devil's in the detail. There's so many blue accents in this car. So we've got a blue stitch along the top of the dash. These are done in Alcantara with blue stitch. We've got a gator here in Alcantara with blue stitch. Obviously we've got carbon everywhere. We've got a reshaped steering wheel, which I made. One thing I spent a fair bit of money on in this car is these clocks or gauges. However, you may notice they're automatic and the new car is manual, so I can't just put them in the new car. So at a later point in this video, I need to figure out how I incorporate these blue clocks or gauges into the new car, because I'm not wasting them. Since removing it, she's looking pretty sorry for herself inside. So as you guys saw, I took all this carbon out of the old car. Now one of the reasons why I need to make a new one of these is, you may notice I've modified it. Now, I've built this bulge area into it and I've added this mount. Now what that mount is for is the old Porsche had air suspension. So I basically had the controller for the air ride mounted in the dash there, so I could drive the car whilst seeing the air ride controller. Now with the new car, I don't intend to have air ride, so I need to make a new one of these, because it shouldn't have that bulge. See the bulge on the bottom? It shouldn't have that. So what I want to do is skim this in carbon, and at the same time I can show you guys how I did it. So it's good for both of us. I get the part from my car and you guys get a tutorial. Now you'll notice this is the original part from the car. Now it's got leather wrap on it. So what we need to do first is take off that leather so that we can prep the surface to cover it in carbon. To remove the leather, what I found the easiest is to grab a heat gun and put a little bit of heat on it, and it softens up the glue, and the leather removes pretty easy. Once the leather is removed, I started to strip the dash part down to remove any of the interior plastics or any of the foam inside to make it easier to skim and prep for carbon. So I've stripped the outer skin, so all we have is the one part. Now all we've got to do is prep this ready to skim in carbon. So the first thing we need to do is sand down the surface to remove all the glue residue and also make a key to allow the carbon and the resin to stick to the plastic. Now even though I've used the sander on it, it's still quite smooth. So what I'm going to do now is use some 80 grit, and this is Abranet. This is some really rough stuff. I'm just going to rough it up to make sure we get a good key for the carbon. But even though I've sanded out with a sander, it's quite smooth, whereas that's really rough where I've used this. So we really want to make sure we get a good adhesion to the carbon here. So I'm going to rough up the whole part using this, and then we can move on to the next stage. I think what I'll do next is cover the table in some paper, ready for mixing up some resin. So let me show you how we skim this in carbon. Now I'll run through the materials. I'll leave a link in the description for all these parts if you want to buy them. So for skimming carbon, you need a resin called XCR. Now this is specifically designed for laminating or sticking carbon to a part. It's not for moulding. Again, I'll leave a link in the description. This is mixed ratio by weight. The ratio is on the bottle here. Now to do that, you need some digital scales. You need some mixing cups. And you need some disposable brushes. Let me mix up some resin and I'll show you what to do. All I'm doing is placing a thin, even coat all over the part. Take care not to put too much on, because what happens is it congregates and runs off the edges and you end up with big drips on the edges, and that makes it a lot harder when you're skimming because you end up with soft bits when you get to the next stage. So just put a thin, even coat all over. Now the next stage is to wait for this to go tacky. Now depending on the temperature and where you are in the world, it will differ the time it takes to cure. Now here in the UK, it's about 25 degrees. At 25 degrees, this will take about approximately an hour and a half. So what I'll do is set my alarm for an hour and a half, and I'll come back, and as long as it's tacky, we can move on to the next stage. So I'll see you in a bit. So I've come in after an hour and a half. I want to check to see if it's tacky. Nothing's coming off my finger. So we're ready to stick on some cloth. I better go and cut some. The one thing to note is you'll see this cloth is rather chunky. That's a 450 thick cloth. So I want to mimic exactly the same weave direction, which is that direction there, on this part. So if I take you to my cloth pile where I store all my materials, at the minute it's a bit of a mess because I haven't really got anywhere to store it. I've got various cloths up here. Now you see this one is a lot thicker than this one. This one's a 200. This one is the 450. This is the one I need. There we go. The cloth is stuck to the part. Let me see if I can show you it. You'll see it's in the matching weave direction for the other part, so it'll tie in with the dash of the other parts I've made. We can move on to the next stage. That's the hard bit done anyway. Pretty pleased with that. You'll see I used yellow tape on the edges. That's just to stick them to the edges to make sure it doesn't lift. And make sure you wear a mask when cutting carbon cloth because the fibres are quite bad for you. So as this is a 450 cloth, it's really thick, so this will take a lot of resin for the first 1 or 2 coats, but then once it's flooded out and it starts to level off, the remaining coats shouldn't be too bad. But if you use a 200 gram cloth, which is the normal size stuff, you probably find you use a lot less resin. It's not very warm in the unit today, so what you see me doing here is using a heat gun to pop the bubbles. Now these bubbles are normally created when you mix the resin, so as you're stirring you create little air bubbles. If you don't remove these and they stay in the resin when it's cured, you can see them and it looks a little bit hazy. But it doesn't look anything great at the minute, it's all textured and lumpy where the weave is. But if we keep building up the resin, it'll start to take shape. So it's been roughly an hour and a half. I've come in to see if it's tacky. Perfect. Let's slap on layer number 2. Here's the parts after 2 coats. Now it's still textured, but by the time we get to the 3rd or 4th coat, this should start leveling out. I'll set my alarm and we'll come back and do coat number 3. So this is resin coat number 3 getting applied. Again, an even coat all over, and I'll finish it off with a heat gun to burst any air bubbles from the mixing stage. I think I'm going to give it a 4th coat, and then we leave it for today to fully cure and come back tomorrow. So now we got all these goodies to fit, but before we do, we need to strip this car. Most people would kill for a Porsche, and here I am stripping it. Not normal. So now I've got 2 Porsches that look like this. So here's all the standard stuff, and it's all in really good condition because it's low mileage. And all that will go in this, which is also pretty stripped. That was the easy bit, stripping the 2 cars. Now I've got to swap the parts around and refit them all. Most people would think I'm mad doing this to a Porsche, or any car in fact. So I just took the centre console out and I spotted something. But one thing that stood out to me was this. There's a really short shifter. Is that factory, guys, or is that aftermarket? It's blue, so it matches my new interior, which is great. So I'd really appreciate if anyone watching knows what that is. If it's aftermarket or factory, please let me know in the comments. It's like a scene off Noah's Ark. 2 by 2, we've got 2 of everything. That's the hard graft done, everything's stripped. We've made the best of both out of the 2 cars. Now it's a case of chucking everything back in. I'm quite excited to do my new car because I get to see all the nice new bits. However, I'm not excited to do the old car because that's going to be a bit monotonous. I've got to be honest, it's pretty cool to have 2 of everything and we can pick the best. But obviously a sports chrono dash with blue stitch, nice. Big weave carbon fibre with Alcantara everything, as opposed to OEM leather. We've got a carbon glove box versus leather. I can't decide on the steering wheels yet, I haven't decided. I may go with this one and get it retrimmed. I've got to make best of both of these. I think I'm going to cut the middle one out and put the blue one in there and the black one in there. So it's like a GT3 with just the colour in the middle. Haters are going to prefer the black and not like that one. But I want a bit of colour inside, especially when the whole car is all carbon. Something to jazz it up. We've got more parts here. They've got some scratches on them, but they'll buff out or lacquer out, worst case. Much better in carbon. Now I've got 2 sets of clocks or dials for the cars. One which is in blue, which is for a Tiptronic automatic, and one which is off my new car, which is a manual and all black. Now, I really like the blue ones, but because they're Tiptronic or automatic, as you can see here, I can't put these in the new car. So I'm going to have to try and make some kind of Frankenstein conversion between the 2 where I can utilise the blue on both. Now I'm thinking the best thing to do is, in the GT3 cars, they only have colour in the centre rev counter, or the tacho. So what I want to do is I want to take this blue one out of the centre here and put it in this gauge cluster here, and then put the black one in here. So eagle-eyed viewers may have spotted that it's got a 4S RS on there. Now that's a vinyl sticker I made and stuck on because that's what I classed my car as when I was showing it. So that will come off, that's easily removed. That 911, however, I had Lockwood put that on the dial. It doesn't illuminate, but that replaces that mark from the factory there. Taking the front lenses off both gauge clusters, and as you can see here, see how the 3 in the centre are joined? So what I'm going to have to do is carefully cut the middle one out to stick that one in here. Not looking forward to this. I'm not going to lie guys, that's a bit daunting if you've never done it before, pulling the needles off, but I've done it a few times so I'm used to it. I need to have a good memory as I've got double of everything to know which one's which. So as I said, the 3 in the centre are one piece. So what I'm going to have to do is painstakingly cut down here with a sharp knife to try and split the centre ring so I can use that in my new clocks and that in the old ones. Not looking forward to this, but once I cut these there's no going back, so wish me luck. Bit ballsy cutting out the middle, but that's what I'm intending to get. I think that'll look okay. Pretty pleased with that. That's going to look pretty sweet inside the car. It's not over the top with too much blue, it's just right. One down, one to go. Not over yet. And there we have it. Both gauge clusters have been swapped round, and I think that worked out pretty well. Very happy with how that turned out. Decent result with no spending. First part to go in is the top of the dash. So one thing you'll notice is I've only got 3 stalks. 1, 2, 3. It's missing the 4th one. However, that car has a 4th stalk, which is cruise control. I'm going to take that off and put it on my other car. Both units are off the car. As you can see, one's got 4 stalks, one's got 3. Now, I'm not really overly concerned about having cruise control, but as I've got the opportunity to take it now and swap it, I may as well take it. It will need coding. It's not just plug and play. I will need to tell the car's got cruise control, but the hard part is getting the parts. Now we've got the dash in, let's check in the clocks. Well pleased with that single blue dial. Contrast the stitch rather nicely. Thank you, old car. One of the dash parts I removed from the old car, I put a logo on it, 4S RS 1 of 1. That was okay when it was in that car, but it's not going to suit the new car. So I'm going to try and sand this out, and hopefully there's enough lacquer underneath it that I can polish it back up and get a satin finish to it without having to re-lacquer it. Worst case scenario, I have to sand it off and it needs another coat of lacquer. Let's find out if we can get away with it. This blue is a stencil that I painted into the part and then clear coated over it, so it's blue paint. So what I'm going to try and do is using 1200 wet and dry and a sander, I'm going to carefully wet sand this to see if I can take enough lacquer off to get the blue off. And then hopefully I can polish it back up to get this satin finish. I managed to sand off the logo, but now I've got to try and get the paint back to this satin finish. Most people get a satin finish by using an additive in the lacquer, but what I do to get this sheen or this not so glossy finish is I sand it with 2000 wet and dry on these padded stuff and then a 4000, and what that does is it gets it almost ready to polish, but if you don't polish it, it gives you that satin finish. Hopefully there's enough lacquer underneath that badge that I can do this method and I won't have to re-lacquer it. Let's find out. Good result. I managed to sand out the logo and use the wet and dry sandpaper to get this satin / matte finish, and it's worked. No need to re-lacquer it. Now you may ask yourself, why do I do this technique to get a satin or matte finish as opposed to lacquering? When you put a matting agent in a lacquer, if you get any dust in your spray room and it lands on the part, you can't polish it out, it's just basically stuck in the paint, and my spray room's not the best, so I always get dust in it. This technique, however, it doesn't matter how bad your paint job is, you can wet sand it, flat it all out, and then make this finish after you've done prepping the surface. Also as well, something to note, if I scratch that, I can wet sand it out and do the same technique, I don't have to re-lacquer it. That's why I prefer this. But, what do you think? Pretty pleased with that. Not a bad result. But what do you prefer? So we got a leather wrapped OEM dash, we've got a satin finish carbon dash. Let me know in the comments, what would you rather? I think it's time we chucked it in. Next, carbon versus scratched plastic. When it comes to steering wheels, obviously this is carbon matching the dash and it's Alcantara matching the seats, but it's got the Triptronic buttons on it. So I think I'm going to leave this on my old car because it's all colour coded and I think it's just easier. And I'm going to fit this one to my car, but I'm probably going to get it retrimmed in Alcantara with blue stitch. I've got 3 cars with carbon steering wheels at the minute, so I think I fancy a change. This interior is starting to shape up rather nicely. The little blue touches everywhere. It'll look really nice. It's safe to say I've got a bit of an obsession. That's the standard fuse box lid, and that's the one I made for my old car. Carbon with a blue badge. Yeah, I think I got issues. I even covered the handbrake handle in carbon. I believe this comes off quite easy. Pull that off. Bit better than that manky old leather. I've also got this trim here. Much better. Ties in with the interior a bit, I think. One thing I will need to do is the gear knob. Obviously, because my old car was automatic, Tiptronic, I haven't got a gear knob. I've left this off. I'll probably carbon skim where it's leather so it ties in with the rest of the dash. But for now, it can stay like this. You'll notice I'm missing this part of the dash. That's because I haven't finished it yet, but I think I need that now, so I better do that next. Before we continue with this video, I wanted to just stop and take an opportunity to say thank you very much to all you loyal subscribers, followers, and people that took the time out to make positive feedback and leave comments. Overwhelmed with the support I'm getting from you guys, and as a way to say thank you, I want to do a giveaway. So all you've got to do to enter is firstly, make sure you're subscribed, and then secondly, drop a comment. It doesn't matter whether you're leaving feedback or leaving a comment, as long as in that comment you have the word carbon in capital letters, as it is on the screen here. Next video, I'll use a random comment generator to pick 5 lucky winners, and you'll all receive a hat, a t-shirt, and a little piece of carbon. And it'll be totally free of charge. It doesn't matter where in the world you are, I'll pick up the cost and make sure I get it to you. And this is just a way for me to say a massive thank you. I really appreciate your support. And if it wasn't for you guys, I probably would have lost a bit of motivation. You really are encouraging me to push on. So thank you. So now let's get back to the video. I've put pretty much most of the interior back in the new car, so I need this part next. Unfortunately for me, it's been about 20 hours and it's fully cured. Now the next stage for this is get an angle grinder with a cutting disc, and I'll take off all the excess. Now the reason for this is there's loads of sharp bits, and while I'm sanding it, I don't want to cut my hands. When sanding and cutting carbon, make sure you wear a mask. It's really bad for your lungs. Also, I'd recommend wearing safety glasses. Next, we're going to give it a sand. We'll use 180 grit sandpaper, followed by 320. Now, if there's no lumps and unevenness in it, we can hit it with a lacquer straight away. However, if it's still a little bit lumpy, we may have to put another coat of XCR resin on it. It's sanded with 180, and you can still see some shiny little low spots. What that means is, there's still little low spots, which if you keep sanding, you could go through the weave. So I've decided what I'm going to do is put another layer of XCR resin on. That way I know she's fully covered. So what I like to do is 320 wet and dry this now to get it more, get rid of more of the sanding marks, and that way you get a really good finish when you put the resin on. So I'll take it in the kitchen and I'll wet sand this. So I just wet sanded that. A little bit of a tip here for you. If you get resin that isn't fully cured and water gets on it, it turns blue. Now don't panic if you see that happening. So what tends to happen is where you get the low spots and you haven't sanded it, sometimes that can go blue. A little bit of advice, use a heat gun and just give it a blip all over, and that gets rid of the blueness before you put the next resin on. With all the previous coats of resin, it was very lumpy when you put it on and it didn't look very good. This stage, when you put the resin on, this you really see the results now because it's all pretty much smooth. I left the resin to dry. Now we're ready to move on to the next stage. There should be more than enough resin on this to move on to sanding and lacquering. The part's all sanded. I started with 180 grit and then went to 320. It's all smooth. You can see there's no shiny bits, which means there's no low spots. There is a little bit on the edge here, but that's tucked up right against the edge of the center console, so you can't see it, so I'm not worried about that. But it's pretty much ready to move on to the clear coat stage. So what I'll do next is take this into the kitchen and wet sand it through various grades, 600 and 800. I'll wet sand this now to get it as smooth as I can to remove any of the sanding marks, just so that when we lacquer it, it's going to be nice and smooth and not full of sanding marks. There we go, she's sanded. Now it's starting to look pretty good. If it looks good when it's wet, it's going to look good when it's in clear coat. But as you can see, that's going to look pretty sweet. So the unit where I do my cars is in Somerset in England, and where I do all my clear coating and painting is back in Wales, which is about a 2-hour drive away. To be able to lacquer carbon and not have to drive to Wales, I built a small little spray room up there just for lacquering. This is the area above the kitchen. It's 4 meters by 2 meters. I'm going to turn it into a small spray room. So apologies for the mess, guys. This is a working garage, so it's not clean. Here's where I store all the moulds upstairs. I've got wheels and tyres. Obviously my car is down there. We're on the mez floor. I mean, check that out. And this is the spray room I built. So I mounted a compressor on top of the toilet. It's got filters, a fan going out the wall, filters drawing air in. And it's not the biggest, but it's ideal for doing carbon. Now I'm pretty short, but this spray room's got a sloped roof, as you can see here. So a lot of these areas I can't get to. However, for lacquering carbon, it's more than ideal. So I'll chuck this on a stand and we get some lacquer on it. To be fair, for first use of the spray room, I was expecting some teething problems with dust and stuff, but it hasn't turned out too bad. What I got to do next is leave that for a couple of hours to fully harden, and then I'll repeat the process of what we did previously with the other dash part, which is 2000, 4000 wet sanding to get that satin finish. So I went home last night and had a bit of a rethink on this steering wheel. I figured I've put all this carbon inside the interior and I've refitted a standard steering wheel, which is not really following my theme of this channel. Now, one of the reasons why I didn't put the carbon steering wheel on the other car, off the other car onto this one, is because it's got the Triptronic buttons and I need a steering wheel for the other car to sell. However, I had a little bit of a rummage through my storage unit last night and I found a standard steering wheel with Triptronic buttons. So I don't need a steering wheel for the other car. Both these steering wheels were exactly the same when they started. Now, my car came with that wheel and I flattened the top, flattened the bottom, added the grips and retrimmed it in carbon. So it's a good comparison shot here. While I was rummaging, I managed to find some carbon fibre blanks I previously made when I tried to do away with the Triptronic buttons. So what I'm probably going to do now is take that steering wheel off, change of plan. We're going to chuck this one on, but I'll change the blanks so we haven't got the Triptronic buttons. I don't think that looks too bad, to be fair. Thank you, blue car. I think what I'll do next is change the front seat belts to the light blue ones I've got, and I'll probably remove the rear ones because we got no rear seats. We've only got a few trims left, which is these ones here and a couple of trims on the door card to go on the car. Now, to be honest, I don't really see the point in fitting these, but I've gone this far with the video, I'll fit them. And the reason why I'm saying I don't really need to fit them is because one of my next videos is going to be putting carbon doors on. So all these door cards are going to be gone pretty much. But for this video, as I've got them, I may as well put them on. Here's the OEM trim. And here's the carbon fibre one with a GT3 style pull in matching Alcantara and blue stitch. Here's the OEM. And here's a satin finish carbon. Now you're probably wondering, why is my door card fairly basic? Now actually, I have got another set of door cards. Now it's pretty obvious I wouldn't have left a set of standard door cards in my car. But like I said, I'm fitting carbon doors, so I'm not going to bother putting the door cards I've made on the car. But let me show you what I made. So phase 1 door card was this one, which matched the centre of the seats. Phase 2 door card, the last show I went to, was this. The carbon fibre door card, custom speaker grills, blue stitch along the top and on there with handle. Now come on, you know me better than that. You didn't think I'd leave them standard, did you? I'm not going to fit them, but I wanted to show you how they look. So that's a blue stitch on the top and carbon fibre matches the dash. Pretty cool, but I can trump that So I'm going to fit carbon fibre doors. One thing that's always bugged my OCD was this was never matching this direction. If I were to use them, they would get redone. Now if I wasn't fitting carbon fibre doors very soon, I would probably take off these top sections, the one with the blue stitch, take all this off, and these bits, and maybe this handle here, and fit them to these door cards. But it's absolutely pointless. I'm literally days away from fitting the carbon fibre doors. I even went to the extreme of doing the interior lighting, matching chunky satin finish weave. It's starting to take shape in here now, with all this carbon. I've only put a single seat in, because we're still waiting for that passenger side dash trim to dry. But as you can see by all the carbon, it's starting to take shape. So these seats came out of a Renault Megane 225 Sport, and I had them retrimmed. Now I made the subframes myself by welding some OEM Porsche ones to some whatever they came with the Renault seats. Now the side here looks pretty ugly. You've got a big gap and it just doesn't look very pretty. So what I did is I made this cover trim, which is carbon fibre and fiberglass, and its purpose is to cover this gap, and it bolts on. I think you'll agree, that looks much better. I've covered these seats in a previous video, but they're all carbon backed. It matches the interior perfectly. I painted this part several hours ago, and now it's dried because it's been baking in the sun. The only thing left before I fit this to the car is to make this satin or matte finish like the rest of the dash parts. So I'll take this back in the kitchen, use the sander and 2000 and 4000 grit, and get the sheen to this and take off the gloss. And then we could chuck it on the car. There we go, one satin finished dash part. Now I've started this 3 days ago, so it's 3 days with curing time. People keep asking me, what does it cost? This weave is £28 a square metre. We haven't even used a quarter of it, so that plus resin, plus a little bit of lacquer. I'd estimate about £50 worth of materials in this, not including labour. But what a transformation with £50 worth of materials, guys. We've taken this scrappy looking dash part and turned it into something I would fit into a supercar. Give it a try. I love sanding it to a satin finish. It gets rid of all the dust, and you haven't got to worry about the finish. You literally do this in your house, because if you rattle can lacquered this and then did the same technique with the sandpaper, you wouldn't have to worry about it, the can finish. Here we have the freshly painted part, which I've just sanded, and this is something I did probably over a year ago, maybe even longer. Now, if we clip this on, look at the match. Matches perfectly. If you painted this with satin or matting agent in your clear coat months and months ago, to try and get that to match a long time later is going to be near on impossible. So this sanding technique works for me every time. So I highly recommend it. Anyway, let's get this in the car and get the interior finished. So this is the final part of the jigsaw for the interior, and you've got to love all the matching cloth. Center console, lower dash, steering wheel. It's going to look superb. All I got left is the driver's seat, but let me give you a little glimpse of the carbon before I put the seat back in. What do you all think of that chunky satin finished cloth? Matching steering wheel, cowling, lower dash, center console, and these trims. It is a shame I didn't finish the interior off with the carbon door cards, but however, the carbon doors are coming soon, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss that one. We finish off the car by putting the last seat in, and that's the interior all done. Out of all the parts that was on this table a few days ago, the only parts that are left are these two here. Now the reason why I'm not fitting them is because if you notice, they've got a blue text which says 911 Carrera 4S RS. Now that was kind of the thing I was going for with the old car, so I need to sand that off and re-lacquer them. So that's the interior all finished, but I got one finishing touch, and here we are. Carbon fibre mirror hanger, and it smells like carbon fibre. And this is the finishing touch to the carbon fibre interior. Perfect. And check it out. It's all finished. So the new car's all complete, but it's not over yet. I've got to put all this back in there. But you don't want to see that. I'll do that offline. And that's all we got time for in this video, guys. Now I'm pretty pleased with the interior and the progress we've made so far. It's much better in here. Now don't forget to press that subscribe button so you don't miss out on future content. But until next time, take it easy. I can't believe I've still got to do all this again. It's like Groundhog Day. To think I'm going to be selling this, I mean, look at the mess. Yeah, certainly got my work cut out. But I got to hurry up and get this done because I need this space because I've got a new project coming. Yeah, watch this space.